Mariah Caudillo is a sex educator who is reimagining the ways in which we talk or do not talk about sex. Her work is all about shame-free, inclusive, and quality sex ed for all. So, if you are listening with young people, well, then I'll let you make the call whether to keep listening.
My big thing or my focus or my theme is really committed to inclusive sex education, sex ed that we didn't get in our younger years, sex ed that we deserved. I really like to take a shame-free approach to it, and also a accessible approach in the sense that I want to make sex ed relatable and normalize these conversations on a platform where everybody or a lot of people are present, and that is on social media.
This is a beautiful conversation, y'all, all about removing shame from the bedroom and from our relationship to sex. Enjoy, y'all. Naps will save us from Trump's reign. Thank you for being here. Who are we speaking with?
My name is Mariah. I'm a sex educator and content creator. My big thing or my focus or my theme is really committed to inclusive sex education, sex ed that we didn't get in our younger years, sex ed that we deserved. I really like to take a shame-free approach to it, and also a accessible approach in the sense that I want to make sex ed relatable and normalize these conversations on a platform where everybody or a lot of people are present, and that is on social media. It's been that way for quite a bit, like 10 years.
I really don't remember. You know how like in the movies they're always in the sex ed class?
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Like I legit don't remember ever having that class. I don't think
Yeah.
it's not required, is it?
Well, it depends on what state you're in.
I
I'm
grew up
in
in New York.
California, and okay, you're in New York. It depends, because it is right now in California, it's state mandated. In other places like New York, I think it's also state mandated, but a lot of places it's not.
I don't remember the condom on the banana. I'm just thinking of things
Right,
I've seen
right.
in movies. Like I didn't have any of that in my
Yeah.
recollection. Maybe I blocked it out. Maybe I
Even if you did, it probably was bad. It probably was shit. You probably didn't even get the like condom conversation, because sex ed that is mandated does not mean it's good.
And so sex education, you want to make it non-tabooed, you want to make it comfortable, you want to make it friendly. Does this mean you're talking to youth, or does it mean you're even talking to like 30-year-old people who are just kind of blind? Like what is
Yeah. So in my day job, that's more focused on young people. I help design sex ed curriculum that is accessible digitally. And my background is I used to be the guest educator that goes into the schools and teaches middle school and high school students for a week or two. So that's my lens or my background. But everything I do on social media is really for all audiences, especially adults who didn't get sex education. So a lot of my content is directly speaking to people like myself, or, the 30-year-olds who are still asking questions or curious about their bodies and the way human bodies work and sex works. There's a lot of unanswered questions, at least for me. Even as an educator, I'm like constantly learning.
When does Mariah decide sex is my path, but like in this way, as education,
That's a great question. And a lot of it is unfortunately related to trauma and my childhood. I, like a lot of people, didn't get sex education, didn't come from a home where we talked about sex in any way that wasn't tied to judgment or purity. I also grew up very religious, and that played a huge role in me not being able to be curious in a free or shame-free way. I mean, that's like a small piece. And then of course there's like sexual trauma attached to all of that, and the confusion, trying to navigate those internal feelings of shame that shape the way I understood sex in the world and relationships. So I think this path found me inevitably because I didn't know anything. I was curious. I was very hungry for knowledge. I found this path because I wanted to learn.
Is there a safe assumption that there was a bit of shame in you around sex?
Mm-hmm.
And so then my next question
1000%.
is the shame gone?
That's a good question. I think a lot of it is. I think I'm constantly healing is a journey, as we know. And so there are moments where I'm faced with things that I thought I was completely over or have worked through. And you just never know. Like things pop up and I'm like, dang, okay, maybe I'm not healed. I'm not ready for this or whatever. And sometimes there's a what is it? The body keeps score, the one about trauma and
Yeah.
how your
Hmm.
body, like my body holds a lot of things that I'm not always aware of or didn't realize, oh, okay, I'm still dealing with that. And that can sometimes produce shame if I let it. But for the most part, I don't feel shame about me as a sexual person or the things I've been through. Sometimes I misalign. My body and my mind aren't always on the same page.
That's a beautiful way of putting it. I think my own personal relationship to sex are my body and mind in the same place.
Right. Yeah.
And for a lot of it, they often are not.
Yeah.
Like the mind is who knows where, and like shame feels like such an amorphous word.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm not really sure what it is. I felt it. We've
Yeah.
all felt it. What is shame? Is it in the act? Is it outside of the act? How does it come up for some people? Maybe some people like need to recognize it and they just don't know how. Is it
Mm-hmm.
that lack of mind and body meeting in the act of
Yeah.
being intimate?
I think it has a lot to do with the messages we're given in society and growing up. For me, for example, growing up in a very faith based family, the message was you do not have sex until you're married. You need to stay pure and be holy because sex is reserved for godly marriages that are heterosexual and pure and perfect. That
This
has
was
always
actually said to you.
more or less. At 11 years old, I had to sign a purity contract
Whoa.
where I vowed to never have sex until I'm married.
Wait. This gets like slid on the kitchen table. It's in your bedroom.
It's at church.
Ah, wow.
Yeah, it was me and like everyone in Sunday school. And this was like a normal thing. So many people I knew who grew up in church did some sort of purity contract or they got like a purity piece of jewelry and it's a constant reminder that you are not to have sex, think sexual thoughts or be sexually impure in any way until you are ready to give that sexual behavior to a husband. Really, that is the messaging.
At
So for
11.
me, that's where shame really started because we are human beings who often feel and think sexual thoughts because sex is just a part of being a human and having a body. So naturally these things are going to come up, and when you're constantly taught to ignore that or to see them as very bad things, then that's where that shame builds. And so that shame, even though it's coming from me, it's coming from within, it's really tied to what I believe to be true about the world. And that's a lot to carry at 11 years old.
Yeah.
And then you throw in sexual assault, sexual abuse into that, which makes things very, very confusing because then you feel like this is my cross to bear, not to, like I, it is my fault or I am, I don't know. I don't know what the language is at this moment, but that also builds more shame.
Wow. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's a lot.
it is.
So,
And even without religion or whatever, like there's so many other things that people experience that create shame. For example, like young boys are taught to like, like there's a lot of, even just when we think about gender, all the different gender stereotypes, all of that also gets applied to your understanding of sex and relationships. And that can also create shame.
so the internet is, I don't know, 70% pornography,
Yeah.
something ridiculous. It's
Yeah.
something like that. I don't even think that includes what might be known in the new Webster's as thirst traps or as things like this, or
Hmm.
and then you have OnlyFans. And
Yeah.
is this, are we wildly repressed? Are we not talking about something? Are we lonely? Maybe every human wants to have more sex, but maybe every human just wants to feel less alone. Like maybe they just want to hang out with people, and they like, I don't know. I
Yeah.
don't speak on behalf of all humans. What's your relationship to the constant flood
Yeah.
of images of shiny things, maybe things we don't have? Is it just preying on our drive that exists in everyone?
These are great questions. What comes to mind for me is when something is so taboo and when we live in a culture where sex is, it, we're receiving different confusing messages. Like we're constantly bombarded with sexual imagery, with porn. At the same time, sex is bad. That's gross. Things like that. I think the taboo nature of sex leads to some of the things we see in porn, or us being bombarded with a lot of that because it's, there's this like secret nature to it. Maybe that's just one of the thoughts I have. But I also think for as long as the internet has been around, there's always been porn. Porn is always, and it's
I
just
mean, before
it's
the
becoming
internet.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. But it is more accessible now with the internet. And so we see it more. We're exposed to it more.
Is sex ed for everybody, or is it to protect a certain culture of our society? Is it to inform a certain culture of our society? Are both needed? Is it to liberate, right? Is this your sort of liberation action?
I think it's all of those things. I think there's a huge misconception about sex ed being this tool to prevent STIs and that's it, or to prevent something, a preventative tool. But honestly, I see sex education as a life skills class because sex ed has everything to do with learning how to communicate, learning how to identify your boundaries, respecting and exploring your body, and knowing how to communicate those things to partners if you're in a sexual relationship with someone, knowing how to say no and recognizing a no, and also those very practical safety tools that we should all be aware of like, oh, this discharge is looking a little bit different than it usually does. Maybe I should get that checked out. Maybe it's an infection. It's, to me, that's life skills. Like these are things we should all know. And sex ed, quality sex ed, good sex ed is trying to achieve that, is to make people informed, so that they can make healthy choices and be a functioning, empathetic human, in my opinion. I mean, bad sex ed has, doesn't always do that, but
The translation outside of the bedroom into life. I used to teach these storytelling workshops,
mm,
and one of my students at the time, she talked about going to a BDSM workshop.
yeah,
And
yeah,
I remember her telling me, I have never seen anyone communicate in that way.
yeah, yeah.
And like that's all I remember of this story, was the high level of communication, the
Hmm.
high level of honesty within people in that space and in that world, and how that was the thing she sort of took away and loved the most about it, was the ability to communicate.
Yeah. We can learn so much from the BDSM community. I am constantly learning so much because that is such an important piece that we're not really taught at all, like not at
Communication.
school. Yeah, not really. I mean, I don't think so. I just being able to identify like, oh, I want this and this really feels good. This turns me on. I want to do it like this, or that exchange is it's so sacred, but it should also be something that comes natural or something that we do in every aspect, not just in sexual contexts. But the BDSM community, they do it beautifully. And yeah, we can learn a lot from them.
Yeah, I don't know if we do communicate openly in most fields. Nevertheless,
Yeah,
sexually intimacy, I think probably most relationships start to crumble
right.
when you can't communicate anything, like
Yeah.
when you want your partner to wash the dishes and they don't, like, and
Mm-hmm.
you just light bubbles up in you. I think this communication is across the board. It's probably more difficult with clothes off, maybe, like, because you feel even
Right.
more vulnerable.
Yeah,
um what
it's so
about
true.
what about that? Can sex ed make us comfortable with our bodies? No. Or is that just on us? Is that our own journey we have to get to?
I think it is our own journey. A lot of it is. But I think sex ed can be a very positive influence in shifting our understanding about our body and being more accepting of our body. If it were up to me, sex ed would dive more into conversations around body image and the way society influences our perspectives about our own bodies and how we move through the world. I personally don't get to go into that a lot because yeah, there's a in sex ed, typically you have like a bunch of different topics that you're supposed to cover in a short amount of time. And body image isn't one of the priorities. So I do think there would be a shift if it were.
How would you do it?
Good question. I knew you were gonna ask that. I'm like, shit, I'm gonna have to expand on this, aren't I?
How would you do it?
Yeah,
There's someone
that's a great
listening who
question.
wants to feel more comfortable
Oh
and
my
whole
God.
in their body.
It's so personal. Like it's such a personal journey that really requires you to like identify the parts about yourself and your life that you feel like you want more support in or you want to feel better in. It's so personal and like I don't know. Like I would I'd love to dive more into that myself. And maybe I will after this.
How much sex for us is just survival, like literally produces
Mm-hmm.
oxytocin in the body. Like we've been
Yeah.
around
Yeah.
forever. We just needed to keep making things.
Mm-hmm.
Then you have polyamorous people who try to tell you about bonobos. Like what, like what is the relationship between relationship, sex, you're just a body?
Yeah.
How does that all come into play? Monogamy, things like that.
Oh man, you touched on like 1,000 topics right now. I think okay, so uh, I think to address the first part is like why do we have sex? Is it survival? Is it just I don't know how much of sex is just this survival instinct thing, but I do think like sex is or can be very pleasurable and we are a people who enjoy pleasure and deserve pleasure and sex allows people to experience that freely. At least I hope so. At least if they're in safe, comfortable, fulfilling sexual dynamics with another person or by themselves, sex allows us to experience pleasure. That's one. But there's also that very vulnerable piece to it. Sex can be intimate. Intimacy doesn't automatically mean sexual, but like there's sex can be special in the sense that we get to experience things that we don't get to experience in our like day-to-day life as often. It can be this very sacred practice whether we have sex with another person or by ourselves that allows us to connect in a very unique way, because there's body involved, like the physicality of it all, but also your mind and your soul. Like there's so many pieces to it that allow you to show up just completely whole.
Is this the new way we're talking about? I might be behind on the terms. Uh, is sex by ourselves? Like, is that how
Yeah.
we say masturbation now? We don't say like, we just say I'm having sex by myself.
I mean, I guess so. I mean, I don't think it's like
I
a
like it.
strict term, but I like to say that.
I like it. I
But
do.
yeah, it is. That's what I mean when I say
It
like
feels,
solo
it
sex.
already feels less taboo and more
That's true.
beautiful.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
feels more beautiful and
Solo
um
sex versus partnered
yeah,
sex. It's all sex.
I like that a lot. So what are your tips for bringing our body and mind into one place?
Yeah. Into like a sexual
Yeah, so that we can really just
space.
arrive.
Yeah. I think going into it knowing that things can take time, to not like rush it. I think a lot of people rush into things. And also, because of what we are taught or we see in the media, like we see things happening very spontaneously without any sort of like communication or preparation. And like, in all honesty, we do have to do some of that work in order. I mean, a lot of people do. Some people are very spontaneous and they don't need any sort of, they don't have to think about it, but a lot of people do. That's the reality. And so knowing that, like going into it, not trying to rush. I also think preparing the environment, like setting up a space where you feel completely comfortable. That might mean logistically making sure if you live with roommates, you're home alone and you can be loud if you want to be loud, or you have the time to setting up candles, like creating an environment where you feel fully yourself and like you can be sexual, not have any distractions. If you're with a partner, like having practical conversations about safety, that can be helpful because it takes off the pressure. Performance anxiety and just anxiety about sex is a huge reason why we experience like sexual dysfunctions. For example, like premature ejaculation or delayed ejaculation, like all of these different sexual dysfunctions we might experience are, it all boils down to like psychology and what's going on in our brain versus what's happening physically. Being more present in our communication and in our space, our environment. Hopefully that's helpful. I think sex is interesting and cool, and I think there's a lot of information that we all deserve. And just to put that out there, like I'm also a learner. I'm learning too. So don't worry if this doesn't make complete sense. And spend more time on foreplay.
I love your commitment to remaining a learner.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, gosh, I hope I never stop.
Yeah. Keep unlocking deeper, more expansive levels
Yeah.
of things. I have a friend who blows me away, and she talks about this in art, but
Okay.
it is related to this, and she talks about
Yeah.
the penis problem. And the penis problem
Which
is,
one? I'm just kidding.
yeah, exactly. The penis problem is our world. Overall, we
Mhm.
have designed a world that thinks climax finish. Like
Right. Oh my
that's
God. Yeah.
our literal world as we know it, from the stock market to movies to culture
Yeah.
to sex and in storytelling, and she craves the vagina solution, which is the deeper something goes,
Yeah.
the better it gets, that it's like
Hmm.
circular, not straight lines.
Totally.
And so
I
how
love
can we
that.
make love in a circular way, or how, with our solo sex, uh,
Yeah.
it's partner sex, like how can it be circular, not a straight line?
Hmm. I love that. And it's such a good analogy because, especially with the storytelling piece of it, with grand finales are always like, that is always the center of everything. And it's so true that sex doesn't always have to end in this grand finale. And when it is goal focused, that you're naturally going to feel very pressured, and you're going to feel like you are showing up to sex with a goal in mind. Like you have to get somewhere, and that feels like work. It starts to feel like, okay, this is
It's a
what's
job.
supposed to happen. And it's not. And so when that is off the table, when it's like, we are just having sex to have sex because it feels good. Like, let's just enjoy the experience moment by moment. And if an orgasm happens, it happens. And that's just like a little bonus. It doesn't have to be the center of the entire experience. So I think it comes down to that shift in perspective of like, let's just take this off the table. Let's remove this pressure. If that means like naming it, like, hey, I don't know it, or it's okay if, like we don't orgasm, or I don't know if I'm going to orgasm today, but I really want to have sex with you. And like, this feels really good. Like if it's communicating that and that takes off the pressure, that's great. Or also just having an understanding that let's just have sex to have sex because it feels good. And that's it.
You get to put down you don't have to finish a book.
Yeah.
Like if a book ain't
Yes.
serving you,
Yes.
like you don't have to
Oh my
finish it.
God.
You don't have to finish the chapter. If you're an artist and you're working on something, it's
Yeah.
not only the grand finale if it gets made or published or about like
Mm-hmm.
hopefully you enjoyed the thing. Hopefully you enjoyed the
Totally.
process. Like
Or you learned something, like you're gaining something. Yeah, I really like that too. It's like just doing something because in that moment, it's something you want to do and it feels good in some aspect. Like as soon as you said a book, I'm like, I'm thinking about food, like just all the things that I've tried and didn't finish because then I decided I was full or I didn't like it anymore or whatever, but I tried I tried it because I wanted to, and maybe it tasted good, maybe it didn't, but you're always accessing information about yourself or that relationship, whatever it is, and that is that's positive.
and I imagine again, it always comes seems like it's gonna keep coming back to communication, but
Right.
if you have two or more people about to hook up with each other and they all just want to take
Mhm.
care of the other person, they're all under pressure and none of them are really communicating or not, like and
Yeah.
it's just sort of this endless cycle. Can we communicate and start from scratch and just be
Yeah.
transparent, which is hard.
It
It's
is
hard.
hard. It's so much harder said than done. Like
It's
the
hard
amount
with
of times
friends, it's hard in relationships, it's hard with your boss. Like it's just hard. And so,
it is.
yeah.
Yeah, gosh. The amount of times I've been in like sexual situations where I'm like, I'm so not taking my own advice right now, or like I don't know how to communicate this. It's very difficult, but
Why is it difficult? So like
I
why don't you just speak up every time? What
yeah,
is it?
yeah.
What happened?
My own anxieties or insecurities get in the way, or it's very hard to unlearn the mess. Like I keep saying messages, but it's like there are these messages that we're constantly up against, whether that has to do with our gender or sexuality or just our culture, like all these different things. And in the moments where you just want to speak for yourself, it can be hard. It's almost like you're up against all these different things that you just have to kind of quiet down. I've been in I've had experiences where I'm like, oh, I don't know how to ask for this, or like I don't know if I should. I don't want to ruin the moment. And like that's dumb. Like who cares? I should ask for what I want, but I've either had experiences or I've been told like that's not what women do. Like, that can make it difficult. And also it makes it difficult when you don't exactly know what to say, when you can't identify the thing that
Mm.
you want. And that just takes practice, and that takes really getting to know yourself, getting to know your body. That's a whole journey in itself.
You familiar with the shadow self? like Jungian shadow self.
Yeah, yeah.
Examples of the shadow self are like there was this dictator in the DR named Rafael Trujillo
Hmm.
who committed a Haitian genocide. He was partially Haitian himself. He hated
Yeah,
this part of himself. He even
right.
baby powdered his skin. I think when I think of sex, I think of people who have these affairs who probably so liberated in their affairs,
Hmm.
but don't want the affair life. And something's wrong. They don't want the home life. Maybe they do want the home life. They want both.
Yeah,
They don't know. I think a bigger communication, not bigger, but a real worthwhile communication we also need to have is with ourselves.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
whatever space we set up with candles and not, may we have the courage to be honest with
Hmm.
ourselves about who we are,
Yeah.
what we want, why we don't want it, what we're ready for, what we're not, what we're over.
Hmm.
Because then I'm not sure we can even communicate it to another person.
Yeah. And be open to rejection, be open to change. That's also another scary piece. It's scary to put yourself out there to communicate something and then be shut down in some way, whether it's like warranted or not. Like it's all the aspects of communication, the communicating piece and the listening piece. And I'm like, of course, thinking I'm like, in sex ed, as a young person in school, this is exactly where you start to learn these skills.
Mm, yeah.
And that's why it's important, because
How
where else
young?
are you going to get this information? I mean, people get so scared of the word sex. So if when I'm like, sex ed could start in kindergarten, they're like, you're going to
Really?
teach kindergarteners about sex. And I'm like, no, the communication, consent, like those very important topics that we should be learning about from a very young age. That's what I mean. Yeah, I think we can start to learn how to identify like, oh, this feels uncomfortable. Why does it feel uncomfortable? This is what I need. This is what I want. Like even just I don't like grapes because they hurt my mouth when I eat them. And like the just learning how to speak up for yourself and how to communicate things in a chill way, I guess.
Do you
But
have
yeah,
a
there's skills, life skills.
do you have like a top three sex ed tips and tricks? Either for I'm interested in a couple. I'm interested in one that's like
Okay.
maybe for parents that wanna say something to their kids.
Yeah.
And then I'm interested for people like us.
Yeah. We'll start with the parents. I think parents can tend to feel scared about these conversations because they feel like they're not prepared or they don't have a lot of knowledge. And what I say to that is it's okay to acknowledge that, to name that, to say I don't know the answer to that and I don't have all the answers in general, but I am willing and open to listening and to hearing you, and I'm going to be supportive. That alone, that doesn't take any special skill to just be someone who is willing to learn and listen. That just takes someone who loves their child or, their whoever it is and wants to make sure that person feels seen and supported in some way, and saying that I'll that you'll learn the information another time, or I'll look this up for you or whatever. Like that, there's nothing wrong with that. But I think it all starts with just being willing and curious, just like your kid is if they're asking you questions. And also being knowing that things change drastically. So things that you may have understood from your time as a teenager or a young person may be different. And that's okay too. Like just be open. That's for parents. For just regular adults, I don't know, childless people. Me, I'm
Childless.
just kidding. I'm childless. I honestly would say the same. Like it's all about being willing and open to learn new information. There's a lot of beauty that can come from that alone. I would love to know. I know you said your sex ed experience was pretty non-existent. Where did you learn about sex? Whether it was good, like doesn't matter if it's porn or a magazine or whatever, but where did you learn about sex?
The ways that caused me the most harm were not
Mhm.
like actually porn, but I would say like movies. I'd say like
Yeah.
movies that said the cool man did this. And,
Yes.
and the cool man did this as often as he could, you know, sacrifice things to make it happen, to like to
Right.
to be with another person. And that caused me a lot of harm because so much of sex for me as a young man was just I thought I had to do it. Like I thought like in order for me to keep being cool,
Yes.
in order
Yes.
for me, I have to do this thing. And so I'm not sure I got to the pleasure part because I was like, I got to do it. Like I got to keep my
Yeah.
cool card up.
Yeah.
And so, and so that would be movies. Wonderful things I learned about sex were, blessings from really good people. I've had really lovely people in my life,
Yeah.
who were kind and generous and and not afraid and
Yeah.
sometimes a little rough and like I got blessed.
Yeah.
And still learning and still evolving. I think that's
Mhm.
a big place where I am is we get to change, we get to define ourselves differently, need different things at different times. I'm a big believer in the laboratory of self. Like,
Mm.
you try something, you bring it into the lab. And so that's where I would say my sexual education really came from.
Yeah.
Because, also, I didn't really have any porn we wanted when I was a kid was like I had to wake up late, look at the
Yeah.
Skinamax, hit the weird button on the back of the cable box, like,
Oh
you
my
know,
God.
so I'm not really like that. It was different times.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
and so, yeah, I would say it was movies that made me think I like had to do it by any means necessary. And then lovely partners who were just generous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that. I feel like that's probably true for a lot of people is like learning from experience or through experience. I have one more question.
Yeah.
Do you think having had like quality sex ed that was really taught from like a shame-free lens, meaning you're not getting the you're not receiving messages like if you have sex, like that's bad or you're going to get an STD. Do you think that would have been helpful in any way or have changed any of your decisions or experiences related to sex?
Oh, I think 1,000%, 1,000,000%. There's no doubt in my mind that,
Mm,
especially now,
yeah,
like
yeah.
if you have a kid, they're gonna stumble upon something probably pretty young. I know some
Yep,
real young
yep.
people with some cell phones already,
Yeah, it's
and
scary out there.
even with the parameters and things, the stories I've heard from parents, and so the conversation should be had uh,
Mhm.
w- whenever possible in
Yeah,
all the different ways that it can look like.
yeah.
Yeah, you're getting really clear that like, hey, this is performance. Hey, this is someone's job. Hey,
Yes.
there's like, like there's work that went into this, or this is a movie, or this
There's
is
lighting. There's
yeah, like
straight up. Yeah.
all of that. I don't think is harmful in any single way. I think it's very, very
Yeah,
important.
totally. Yeah, thank you for answering that. I feel the same.
Yeah, 100,000,000%.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's in our world that taxes death. Everyone's like
Mhm.
thinking about it all the time.
Yep,
Um, and we
it's
don't
so
have a
true.
we don't have a lot of space to meet it, oddly enough.
Yeah, yeah,
I think I also want to say something.
yeah,
Different people need different things. We somehow think there's a single playbook. There's like a
yeah.
single style.
Because that's what we're
Um,
taught. I mean, that's what we're constantly exposed to. Just, I
yeah,
mean, like even with the orgasm thing, like you were saying, like that's the playbook or that we think we're supposed to follow.
yeah. Many playbooks, which we can only get to by chatting with people. How can people connect with you, reach out, talk to you, learn from you?
Social media is the best way, or email. My social media accounts are on TikTok, YouTube, and Instagram, and they're all under SexEdFiles. And then my email is sexedfiles@gmail.com.
Well, I am grateful for you. Thank you.
Thank you for asking really challenging questions, because it's helped me reflect on some things. And yeah, I really appreciated this conversation.
And we both keep learning.
Yes.
And that is our time with Mariah. Make sure to check her out at SexEdFiles, wherever you subscribe and do the socials. Also, make sure to like and subscribe to Brown Enough, this show, wherever you listen or watch. Much love. Peace. See you next week.